Late at night, there is a very strange feeling. When you lie in bed and the room gradually becomes quiet, as the sounds of the city slowly drift away, you suddenly realize something. Earth is actually floating in the universe. No support, no boundaries, no real up or down. And before humans appeared, this universe had already existed silently for tens of billions of years. There are hundreds of billions of stars in the Milky Way. And in the universe, there are hundreds of billions of galaxies. Just within the scope of the universe we can currently observe, the number of stars might be more than all the grains of sand on Earth combined. So, a question begins to become unavoidable. In such a massive universe, is it truly just us? For the past few decades, humanity has been asking this question, and asking it more and more seriously, especially in recent years. The US government has suddenly started to release a large number of documents regarding UFOs, also known as unidentified aerial phenomena. The Pentagon established an office specifically to investigate UAPs. US Navy pilots began to talk publicly about the strange objects they saw in the air. NASA began to participate in relevant research. The US government has recently established an official dedicated platform to systematically release archives regarding unidentified anomalous phenomena. This marks a significant shift in perspective. For a long time, these phenomena were relegated to the fringes of public discourse. 20 years ago, discussing such topics in a serious professional setting might have been met with profound skepticism. Today, however, the landscape has completely changed. Topics that were once the domain of tabloids and late-night speculation are now being formally addressed by Congress, the Department of Defense, the intelligence community, and mainstream scientific institutions. In today's video, we will conduct an objective review of the most significant aerial anomalies in modern history. Our journey includes the 1,947 Roswell files, the U.S. Air Force's 7-year-long Project Blue Book, and extraordinary sighting cases reported by professional pilots that remain unexplained to this day. We will look into the records of Area 51 and examine why a growing number of scientists are utilizing probabilistic models to reconsider the existence of extraterrestrial civilizations. Naturally, we must address the fundamental paradox. If other civilizations exist within the vastness of the universe, why have we yet to establish definitive contact? Where are they? Or perhaps the more pressing question is, have they truly never been here? Before we delve deeper, let us wind back the clock to where the modern era of these mysteries truly began, 1947. Because almost everything concerning UFOs for modern humanity began in this year. That year, an American businessman and pilot named Kenneth Arnold was flying his small plane over Washington State. The weather that day was very good. The sky was very clear. Arnold was originally assisting in the search for a missing military transport plane. But during the flight, he suddenly saw several very strange objects appear in the distance. 9 in total. They zipped across the sky at high speed. The way they flew was very strange. Unlike airplanes, unlike anything he had ever seen. Arnold later recalled that the movement of those objects looked like a saucer skipping across water. The next day, the American media quickly reported on the matter. And reporters, directly from this metaphor, created a word that would later influence the entire world for decades: flying saucer. Many people think that UFO culture began with movies. In fact, it didn't. It truly began with a pilot seeing something in the sky that he could not understand. More importantly, 1947 was not an ordinary year. World War II had just ended. The Cold War had just begun. The United States had just become the first country in the world to use atomic bombs. And the Soviet Union was also frantically pushing forward its own nuclear program. the entire world entered an unprecedented state of tension. The sky, for the first time, became a true strategic space. Humans began to constantly invent new aircraft, new radar systems, new missiles, new reconnaissance technologies. It was also in this year that the Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA, was officially established. The modern national security system began to take shape. So you will find a very interesting thing. The birth of the modern UFO era occurred almost simultaneously with the birth of the modern intelligence era. And shortly after the Kenneth Arnold incident, another incident appeared that later became even more famous: Roswell. Until today, it may still be the most famous UFO incident in the world. July 1947, New Mexico, USA. The Roswell Army Airfield suddenly released a very strange press release to the media. The content was roughly, the military had recovered a flying saucer. Attention, this is what the US military said themselves. The news caused an immediate sensation across the country. But strangely, less than 24 hours later, the military suddenly changed their story. They said it wasn't any flying saucer. It was just an ordinary weather balloon. The matter should have ended there. But the problem was, this contradiction made even more people start to wonder. Why did the military say it was a flying saucer in the first place? Why did they suddenly change their story? Were they hiding something? Decades later, the US government declassified some related documents. The documents showed that the Roswell incident most likely involved a top-secret project called Project Mogul. The goal of this project was not to study aliens, but to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. At the time, the US was worried about the Soviet Union conducting secret atomic bomb experiments, so they designed a high-altitude balloon system. These balloons would fly high into the sky and use special equipment to detect sound waves generated by long-distance explosions. Because it was a highly classified project, the military was unwilling to disclose the details. That is why the later confusing explanations appeared. However, historical curiosity regarding the Roswell incident did not fade. Instead, the narrative expanded significantly, evolving into a complex cultural phenomenon. Reports of recovered unconventional craft, biological remains, and clandestine underground facilities began to circulate widely. Eventually, these claims laid the groundwork for what we now know as the Area 51 legends. In reality, Area 51 is far more than an urban myth. It is a tangible military installation. After decades of speculation, the US government officially acknowledged its existence. Situated deep within the Nevada desert, this site has served as one of the most classified military testing grounds in history. It was here that the United States developed groundbreaking aerospace technology, including the U-2 high-altitude reconnaissance plane, the SR-71 Blackbird, and advanced stealth projects that remain classified. When these aircraft were first tested, their radical designs and unprecedented performance, flying higher and faster than anything previously seen, were beyond public comprehension. This led to a surge in reports of objects that seemed not of this earth. Decades later, declassified CIA documents confirmed that a significant percentage of Cold War-era sightings were, in fact, encounters with secret military flight tests. This reveals a recurring pattern in history. Many mysterious phenomena are actually the public's first unintended contact with technology that exceeds their current knowledge. Yet, historical records suggest the situation was not entirely resolved. Over the following decades, certain cases emerged that defied standard explanations. These were not merely anecdotal accounts. They were documented by professional military pilots, high-resolution radar systems, and infrared sensors, often recorded by multiple independent devices simultaneously. In response to these anomalies, the U.S. Air Force initiated a series of systematic investigations, beginning with Project Sign in 1948, followed by Project Grudge, and eventually the renowned Project Blue Book. This 17-year endeavor analyzed over 12,000 reported incidents. While the vast majority were identified as meteorological phenomena, misidentified aircraft, or optical illusions, a small, persistent percentage of cases, even after rigorous investigation, remains officially unexplained. And as time went on, humanity's imagination regarding UFOs also began to grow richer. In the 50 seconds and 60 seconds, a large number of movies about flying saucers began to appear. Alien culture quickly entered mass entertainment. Many people began to believe that the US government was hiding the truth. Some even thought that aliens had already arrived on Earth long ago. It's just that ordinary people didn't know. Meanwhile, another even more interesting question slowly began to emerge. Perhaps what humans are truly interested in is not the UFOs themselves, but whether we truly exist alone in the universe. Because if you think about it seriously, this question is actually quite incredible. The universe is too big beyond human intuition. In the Milky Way alone, there are approximately 100 billion to 400 billion stars, and now scientists have discovered that many stars have planets around them. Some of these planets might even be located in the so-called habitable zone. That is, positions where the temperature allows liquid water to exist, and water is precisely one of the most important conditions for life as we currently know it. So many scientists are beginning to think, if Earth is the only place in the universe with life, it would actually be an event with a very low probability. 1961, American astronomer Frank Drake proposed a formula that later became very famous: the Drake equation. It attempts to estimate how many civilizations capable of communication might exist in the Milky Way. This formula contains many factors. For example, the rate of star formation, the fraction of those stars that have planets, the number of planets suitable for life, the probability of life appearing, the probability of intelligent civilizations appearing, the length of time such civilizations persist, although many of these parameters cannot be accurately determined to this day. But this formula, for the first time, allowed humanity to start discussing extraterrestrial civilizations in a scientific way, rather than just staying at the level of fantasy. Later on, the SETI program appeared, which is Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. Scientists began to seriously monitor radio signals from deep space. They believed that a highly developed civilization would very likely leave behind some kind of technological trace, such as radio waves or giant engineering structures, even traces of stellar energy utilization. In 1977, the SETI project received a very famous anomalous signal, the WOW signal. The origin of this name is very simple, because at the time, a researcher excitedly wrote a single word next to the printout. Wow! This signal lasted for 72 seconds. Its intensity was abnormal. Its source direction was clear. But after that, it never appeared again. Until today, humanity still does not know what it truly was. And what truly brought the entire UFO topic back into the global mainstream spotlight was actually the year 2017. For many years before that, the word UFO had gradually become a somewhat outdated cultural symbol. It was more like something from the last century, like conspiracy theories from the era of videotapes, like late-night radio programs, like the pictures of flying saucers on the covers of yellowed magazines. Many young people had even stopped discussing it seriously, because the internet era brought too much new information. AI, quantum computing, Mars colonization, brain-computer interfaces. In comparison, flying saucers seemed less attractive. But in 2017, the New York Times suddenly published a very important investigative report. The report content was, the U.S. Department of Defense had been running a secret project to study UFOs for a long time. The project name was ATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. Once the news came out, the whole world began to pay attention to this topic again, because this time, it was no longer ordinary witnesses, not urban legends, not blurry photos, but the U.S. military itself, admitting that they had been seriously studying these phenomena. More importantly, the U.S. military also publicly released several videos that later became extremely famous, including FLIR, Gimbal, Go Fast. These videos all came from U.S. Navy fighter jets. In the footage, strange targets can be seen moving abnormally in the sky. The most crucial point is, these targets were not captured by ordinary people with mobile phones, but were recorded collectively by military infrared systems, fighter jet radars, and professional pilots. As a result, things began to become completely different. One of the most significant documented encounters occurred in 2004, an event now widely recognized as the Nimitz incident. While the U.S. Navy's Nimitz Carrier Strike Group was conducting routine training in the Pacific, radar operators detected multiple targets exhibiting highly unconventional flight characteristics. According to sensor data, these objects descended from an altitude of 80,000 feet to sea level within seconds, maintained extreme velocities, and displayed no visible means of propulsion, lacking traditional wings, engines, or exhaust plumes. In response, F/A-18 fighter jets were dispatched to intercept and identify the targets. Commander David Fravor, an experienced pilot, later described observing a white, oblong object, approximately 12 meters in length, with a smooth exterior and no apparent flight control surfaces. The object maneuvered erratically above the ocean before accelerating at a rate that defied standard aerodynamic logic, vanishing from both visual and sensor range instantly. Fravor noted that in his extensive aviation career, he had never encountered technology with such capabilities. The profound impact of this case lies in its official verification. The U.S. military later formally confirmed the authenticity of the sensor footage captured during these encounters. It is crucial to note, however, that the government's confirmation pertained to the reality of the footage itself, not the origin of the objects. The official stance remains disciplined and cautious. They have not claimed to find extraterrestrial craft. Rather, they have acknowledged the existence of unidentified phenomena that remain currently unexplainable. In the years following, the U.S. government established new specialized investigative task forces and transitioned away from the term UFO, adopting the more precise designation UAP, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena. This shift was a practical necessity to distance the investigation from the cultural stigmas and speculative theories associated with the older term. For the Department of Defense, the focus is not on popular mythology, but on the potential risks posed by unidentified incursions into protected airspace. In a military context, the unknown represents a fundamental challenge to national security and flight safety. In 1961, an American couple driving through New Hampshire reported a close-range encounter with an unconventional, luminous object. What initially appeared to be a standard aircraft began to exhibit irregular flight patterns. Upon returning home, the couple reported a lapse in their memory, an interval of missing time. In subsequent clinical sessions involving hypnotic regression, they described a complex experience involving an unconventional craft and a series of physical evaluations. This case became a pivotal moment in historical research, as it established the foundational framework for modern human anomaly encounter narratives, characterized by themes of temporal loss and physiological observation. Naturally, the scientific community maintains a rigorous skepticism regarding these accounts. Many psychologists suggest that such experiences may be linked to sleep paralysis, vivid dream states, or the power of suggestive memory. Sleep paralysis, in particular, is a well-documented physiological state occurring between sleep and wakefulness, often accompanied by sensory hallucinations. Historically, various cultures have interpreted this state through local folklore. Consequently, some researchers argue that modern encounter stories are essentially a technological age adaptation of these ancient psychological experiences. Despite these scientific explanations, themes of extraterrestrial life continued to integrate into popular culture throughout the 1970 seconds and 1980 seconds. This era was marked by heightened social anxieties, including the Cold War, and a shifting trust in institutional authority. These factors, combined with the widespread reach of influential cinema and television, led to a significant expansion of alien-themed media across the globe. Concurrently, another phenomenon gained international attention: crop circles. Beginning in the 1970 seconds, intricate geometric patterns were discovered across the British countryside, where large sections of wheat had been flattened by an unidentified force. The scale and mathematical precision of some designs led many to hypothesize a non-human origin. In later years, two individuals publicly demonstrated that the initial patterns were, in fact, coordinated hoaxes created using simple manual tools. While this provided a logical explanation for many cases, the phenomenon persisted. As subsequent designs reached unprecedented levels of complexity, public debate shifted toward the distinction between verified, man-made art and unexplained anomalies, ensuring that the topic remained a subject of intense investigation and cultural discussion. Throughout the history of aerial phenomena, a recurring pattern emerges. Whenever a scientific explanation is provided, the sense of mystery diminishes, yet new complexities invariably surface. It appears as though the human quest for understanding the cosmic unknown is a fundamental driver of our progress. What truly prompted the scientific community to seriously evaluate the probability of extraterrestrial civilizations was not anecdotal sightings, but the remarkable advancements in astronomy over the last 2 decades. We have come to realize that the universe contains far more planetary systems than previously theorized. In 1995, astronomers confirmed the first exoplanet orbiting a sun-like star. Since then, the rate of discovery has accelerated significantly, largely due to NASA's Kepler Space Telescope. By monitoring minute fluctuations in stellar brightness, a method known as transit photometry, scientists have identified thousands of exoplanets. Many of these worlds share a similar scale to Earth and reside in the habitable zone, where temperatures may allow for liquid water. This suggests that the universe may be home to countless environments capable of supporting life. Chapter 3: Kenneth Arnold and the Emergence of a Modern Mystery. On June 24, 1947, pilot Kenneth Arnold was flying over Mount Rainier when he witnessed a phenomenon that would redefine the modern era. In the clear sky, he observed 9 metallic objects traversing the mountain peaks at velocities that far exceeded the capabilities of any known aircraft of that time. He described their motion as irregular, similar to a saucer skipping across water. This vivid description was widely circulated by the media, eventually giving rise to the household term, the flying saucer. From that moment, phenomena that were once relegated to folklore or meteorological anomalies were formally integrated into the discourse of modern civilization. Arnold's sighting was not merely an isolated incident. It represented a shift in perception, where unexplained aerial objects were documented under the scrutiny of modern observation. In the heightened security atmosphere of the early Cold War, these sightings presented a significant technological challenge and prompted questions regarding the established boundaries of physics. While initial official reports attempted to attribute these events to atmospheric refraction or psychological factors, Arnold's professional aviation background added a layer of credibility that made such dismissive explanations difficult to sustain. The emergence of the flying saucer signified the arrival of a persistent, unexplained reality that would continue to challenge the scientific and defense communities of the industrial age. If Arnold's sighting merely opened the discussion, then the Roswell incident, occurring just 2 weeks later, shifted the entire narrative into a much more complex territory. On that stormy night in New Mexico, the wreckage, discovered on a remote ranch, would become the center of a debate that has lasted for decades. Initially, the local airbase issued a remarkable statement, claiming they had recovered a flying disc. However, within hours, this official account was revised and replaced by a more conventional explanation. The object was identified as a weather balloon. This rapid reversal became a foundational point of contention between independent researchers and official narratives for the next half-century. Over time, various accounts emerged regarding unconventional materials, strange markings on structural components, and unverified reports concerning non-human biological remains. Although authorities eventually sought to clarify the event by citing Project Mogul, a classified program using high-altitude balloons to monitor Soviet nuclear tests, significant questions remained within the public discourse. The Roswell incident acted as a watershed moment, creating a divide in how information was handled. The public-facing explanations on one side and highly classified files protected by national security protocols on the other. From that point forward, aerial anomalies were no longer viewed solely as a scientific curiosity. They became a matter of national security, sovereignty, and humanity's broader understanding of its place in the cosmos. Confronted with a rising number of unexplained aerial sightings, the U.S. Air Force established formal investigation mechanisms. These initiatives were driven primarily by defensive necessity. The initial Project Sign demonstrated a surprising level of candor. In its 1948 estimate of the situation, investigators suggested that some sightings might indeed have an extraterrestrial origin. However, this perspective was reportedly met with resistance from the highest levels of leadership. For a governing system, acknowledging a presence with superior technology represented a significant challenge to the perceived control of national airspace. The subsequent Project Grudge adopted a notably different approach. Its primary function appeared to be more about public management than data collection. The project often utilized dismissive explanations for sightings, attributing unexplained radar returns to temperature inversions and visual encounters to misidentifications or psychological factors. This institutional response reflected a defensive posture when facing the unknown, an attempt to categorize and contain phenomena that challenge the existing technological order. However, this cautious approach did not resolve the issue. Reports of unidentified objects continued to emerge, often occurring near sensitive military locations. The contrast between official dismissals and persistent sightings sparked a shift in public awareness. People began to consider that the complete picture of these events might not be found in public statements, but rather within the documented testimonies and files that remained outside the public domain. In 1952, the U.S. Air Force launched its most extensive investigation into unidentified aerial phenomena, Project Blue Book. While presented as a rigorous scientific endeavor, over its 17 years of implementation, its function was often viewed as a complex administrative mechanism. The prevailing objective of Project Blue Book was to identify conventional explanations for reports, though a significant portion, nearly 20% of the cases, consistently remained categorized as unexplained. During this era, Dr. J. Allen Hynek served as the chief scientific consultant. Initially a dedicated skeptic, he analyzed every sighting from a strictly astronomical perspective. In some instances, his attempts to find conventional causes led to controversial theories, such as the famous swamp gas explanation, which became a subject of debate for decades. However, as Dr. D. Zo Hynek conducted more on-site investigations, he encountered numerous witnesses whose technical clarity and consistency challenged his existing scientific frameworks. Dr. Hynek gradually began to perceive a disconnect between the raw data and the standardized reporting intended for public consumption. While the majority of the 12,000 cases collected by Project Blue Book were indeed attributable to natural phenomena, several hundred cases verified by multiple radar systems, experienced pilots, and possessing extraordinary physical characteristics seemed to be minimized in final official reports. This perceived gap between observation and institutional conclusion eventually led to a shift in Dr. Hynek's perspective, highlighting the tension that can arise when scientific inquiry is influenced by administrative priorities. Dr. Hynek's evolution represented a significant turning point in the study of aerial anomalies. The former leader of the skeptical movement began to acknowledge the weight of unexplainable physical evidence. He realized that the established frameworks of astronomy, physics, and psychology might be incomplete when addressing these specific objects. Moving beyond the standardized conclusions provided by the Air Force, he began to develop an independent scientific language for these occurrences. This led to the creation of the renowned Close Encounters classification system. By establishing the first, second, and third kinds of encounters, Dr. Hynek sought to transform anecdotal reports into a structured phenomenology. He was particularly interested in cases involving physical effects, such as localized radiation, botanical changes, or electromagnetic interference affecting mechanical systems. These were no longer fleeting observations, but measurable interactions with the physical environment. Dr. Hynek's shift marked a transition in the field from questioning the reality of the phenomena to investigating their nature. He began to explore advanced hypotheses, considering whether these objects represented unconventional technology, dimensional anomalies, or long-range observation platform. When Project Blue Book concluded in 1969, following the skeptical findings of the Condon Report, Dr. Hynek continued his research independently. His legacy is not just a classification system, but a call for intellectual humility, suggesting that in our exploration of the cosmos, an open-minded scientific approach is essential to understanding the truth. If the aerial anomalies documented in the United States reflect the rugged openness of the desert, then the Rendlesham Forest incident of December 1980 represents a more somber and strategically significant chapter of the Cold War. This event did not stem from civilian accounts, but occurred within the restricted defense zones of two U.S. Air Force bases in the UK, RAF Bentwaters and RAF Woodbridge. As key NATO installations, these bases maintained constant radar surveillance, where every unidentified signal had potential global implications. On that winter night, security personnel initially reported unconventional lights deep within the forest. Upon investigation, they encountered a triangular craft with a metallic exterior, maneuvering silently through the trees and displaying rhythmic red and blue lights. A pivotal account came from the base's deputy commander, Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt. A career officer, Halt conducted a systematic search, documenting the process with a portable tape recorder and a radiation detector. In Colonel Halt's official recording, the audio captures the crew's observations and the distinctive readings from the detector near physical indentations in the ground. Technical data indicated that residual radiation levels at the site were notably higher than the natural background. The presence of 3 symmetrical indentations suggested that a substantial, stable object had indeed made landfall. The significance of the Rendlesham Forest case lies in its occurrence within a military environment, backed by physical measurements and professional testimony. This event moved the discussion of unidentified phenomena out of the realm of speculation and into the serious framework of national security analysis. The Phoenix Lights, a collective observation. On March 13, 1997, a significant aerial anomaly occurred over Phoenix, Arizona, that would become one of the most widely witnessed events in modern history. Tens of thousands of residents observed a massive, V-shaped formation of lights gliding silently across the night sky. Witnesses described the formation as having an immense scale, with 5 distinct amber luminous bodies visible on its underside. Despite its perceived size, the objects moved at low altitudes without producing any detectable acoustic signature. That night, public safety communication centers were overwhelmed by citizens seeking clarification on the nature of the sighting. The official response at the time, however, focused on public management rather than data transparency. The governor, Fife Symington, initially attempted to downplay the event during a press conference using a lighthearted approach to alleviate public concern. Yet, the persistence of the evidence led to a notable shift years later. In 2007, the retired governor publicly clarified his stance, stating that he too had witnessed the phenomenon. He noted that as a former pilot, he recognized the object's characteristics as being inconsistent with any conventional human aircraft of that era. The Phoenix Lights remains a landmark case, illustrating the challenges administrative bodies face when addressing large-scale, unconventional aerial events that fall outside the scope of standard identification protocols. From the late 1980 seconds to the early 1990 seconds, the airspace over Belgium experienced a period of sustained and significant aerial activity, known as the Belgian UFO wave. This series of events represented a notable interaction between conventional air defense systems and an unidentified technological presence. In numerous reports, the public described a large triangular craft featuring 3 distinct lights on its underside. The Belgian Air Force subsequently dispatched F-16 fighters for interception. When the onboard radar system successfully tracked the targets, the objects displayed performance characteristics that challenged the expectations of experienced pilots. Within seconds, an object would demonstrate a rapid velocity shift from 200 kilometers h to 3,000 kilometers h, accompanied by acute maneuvers and vertical transitions that were inconsistent with standard aerodynamic models. Radar data indicated that the G-forces involved in these maneuvers exceeded the structural limitations of any known human-engineered aircraft. General Wilfried de Bruer, then Deputy Chief of Staff of the Air Force, later presented radar tracking data at a press conference, acknowledging that the technical performance of these objects appeared to transcend the contemporary understanding of flight physics. The Belgian events provided substantial physical evidence corroborated by both visual and sensor data of a tangible presence capable of highly sophisticated, intelligent maneuvers within a regulated defense environment. Entering the 21st century, the observation of such phenomena evolved from anecdotal sightings to high-precision, multi-sensor documentation. In 2004, the USS Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, while conducting training near the California coast, documented a unique encounter with an unconventional object, now famously referred to as the Tic Tac. Commander David Fravor, piloting an F/A-18 Super Hornet, observed a white, oblong object, approximately 14 meters in length, moving just above the ocean's surface. The craft lacked traditional wings, engine nozzles, or visible control surfaces, yet it exhibited a high-frequency, irregular hovering pattern. Upon the arrival of the interceptors, the object displayed an instantaneous acceleration and departed from the immediate visual range. Of particular interest to naval intelligence was the object's subsequent appearance at the pilot's predetermined cap point, an assembly coordinate 60 miles away within seconds. This suggested not only a high-velocity capability, but also a potential awareness of secure military mission parameters. The Nimitz encounter is supported by both professional pilot testimony and high-definition video from forward-looking infrared systems. In these official recordings, titled Gimbal and Go Fast, we can analyze movement patterns that appear to function independently of conventional drag and gravitational effects. These events represent a documented reality, a technological presence that challenges the current apex of human aerospace capabilities. When we examine these sightings and encounters spanning half a century, a fundamental proposition emerges. If the universe contains technological entities that transcend our current understanding, what is their true distribution? This is the core of the famous question raised by physicist Enrico Fermi in 1950, known as the Fermi paradox. Theoretical models such as the Drake equation suggest that within the Milky Way alone, the conditions for intelligent civilizations should be statistically significant. Why then have our radio telescopes primarily documented a persistent lack of communication for decades? This observation has given rise to several compelling hypotheses. One is the Great Filter, which suggests that civilizations may encounter insurmountable developmental hurdles before reaching an interstellar stage. Another is the zoo hypothesis, which posits that advanced civilizations may deliberately maintain a policy of non-interference, observing our development from a distance without formal contact. Furthermore, some researchers suggest that these recurring aerial phenomena may not represent visitors from distant galaxies, but rather a persistent local presence, perhaps residing in environments or dimensions that remain largely inaccessible to us. In this context, the answer to the Fermi paradox may not be that they are absent, but that our current level of development has not yet facilitated a formal introduction. This endeavor to identify our place within the cosmic void transforms the study of unidentified phenomena into a serious inquiry into the nature of life and our relative status in the universe. The echo in the dark, the wow signal. In our ongoing search for extraterrestrial intelligence, humanity once documented a moment that appeared to be a significant echo. In 1977, a radio telescope at Ohio State University detected a high-intensity, narrowband signal lasting 72 seconds, originating from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. Upon reviewing the data, astronomer Jerry Eman was so struck by the signal's unique characteristics that he famously noted, "Wow," on the printout. The signal's frequency was measured at 1420 MHz, the spectral line of neutral hydrogen. This frequency is widely considered the most logical universal channel for interstellar communication. The signal did not align with the patterns of known natural celestial bodies. Rather, it matched the theoretical profile of an artificial broadcast. However, despite repeated attempts to re-identify the signal at those same coordinates, the region has remained silent. The WOW signal represents a singular event from the depths of space, a brief moment of potential contact, followed by a return to the unknown. It highlights a difficult reality. Even if a signal is captured, understanding its intent remains a massive challenge. Given the vast distances of space, A signal reaching Earth today may have been sent by a civilization that has since undergone its own evolutionary conclusion. This vast displacement across time and space renders interstellar communication both a profound aspiration and a significant challenge. What we captured may have been a final testament, rather than a contemporary greeting, a realization of cosmic isolation that is perhaps more thought-provoking than finding no signal at all. For most of human history, our knowledge of exoplanets remained only at the level of philosophical speculation. However, at the beginning of the 21st century, the launch of the Kepler Space Telescope completely changed this situation. It no longer searched for those ethereal spots of light, but instead captured the silhouettes of planets orbiting distant stars through the transit method, observing the slight dip in a star's brightness. Kepler's data revealed a shocking fact. There are more planets in the Milky Way than there are stars. This means that almost every star we see in the night sky is highly likely to have its own planetary system. From this vast sea of data, scientists screen for Earth-like planets located in the habitable zone. These planets are at just the right distance from their parent stars, neither too hot nor too cold, theoretically allowing for the starring existence of liquid water. The service of the James Webb Space Telescope has pushed this search to the chemical level. It can analyze the spectra of planetary atmospheres, looking for evidence of oxygen, methane, carbon dioxide, and even complex organic molecules. This search is essentially looking for biosignatures. If we discover chemical imbalances in the atmosphere of a planet several light years away that can only be produced by industrial civilizations or biological activities, then the truth of UFOs will no longer rely solely on sighting reports, but will be pinned to rigorous molecular biology coordinates. We are transitioning from observing the sky to deconstructing life, a technological leap that brings us closer than ever to that ultimate answer. The famous equation, written by astronomer Frank Drake in 1961, remains the core framework for discussing the possibility of extraterrestrial life. The Drake equation breaks down the number of cosmic civilizations into a product of a series of probabilities: the rate of star formation, the fraction of stars with planets, the probability of habitable environments, the probability of life emerging, and most crucially, the length of time an intelligent civilization can continue to transmit signals outward. As the Kepler mission precisely quantified the first few parameters, the greatest uncertainty in the equation falls on the last two variables: the inevitability of life's emergence and the lifespan of civilizations. If, after mastering nuclear energy or artificial intelligence, the average lifespan of a civilization is only a few thousand or even a few hundred years, then the probability of different civilizations intersecting on the timeline of the universe will be minuscule. This explains why the universe appears so empty. Perhaps countless civilizations were once glorious, but they are merely fireflies passing each other in the vast desert of time, never glowing at the same instant. This anxiety over the lifespan of civilizations also reflects humanity's own situation. The footprints we left on the moon and the rovers we sent to Mars are essentially attempts to extend the length of this variable. If UFOs are some kind of intergalactic observers, then they may have already solved the survival challenges brought by the Great Filter and mastered energy utilization methods that allow a civilization to persist for millions of years. In this perspective, studying UFOs is no longer just about searching for aliens, but about searching for the ultimate form that human civilization could possibly achieve. During a late-night journey in September 1961, the couple Betty and Barney Hill encountered the first widely known abduction case in UFO research history. This incident opened a dark and controversial field. When humans come into close contact with these objects, what exactly happens to our consciousness and memory? The Hills described being intercepted by a disc-shaped object on a mountain road, followed by several hours of missing time. In subsequent hypnotic therapy, Barney described non-human entities with large eyes and gray skin, as well as various invasive physiological examinations conducted inside the craft. The most perplexing detail was a star map drawn by Betty. Under hypnosis, she accurately sketched the stellar arrangement of the Zeta Reticuli system, astronomical information that was not well known to the public at the time. The emergence of abduction cases extended the UFO phenomenon from physical observation to psychological trauma. Whether it is the later legends of the Men in Black or the self-accounts of thousands of similar abductees, all point to a common feature. These entities seem to have an intense interest in human biology, genetic information, and the nervous system. If these testimonies are true, then the entities behind the UFO phenomenon are not friendly diplomats, but more like cold laboratory observers, viewing humans as biological specimens that can be sampled for research. This asymmetrical contact has painted a cold and daunting color onto the blueprint of cosmic relations. For a long time, the official attitude toward UFOs remained no comment or total denial. However, a headline in the New York Times in 2017 completely burst this dam of silence. The report revealed that a project named the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, had been running secretly within the Pentagon. The program was led by Luis Elizondo and was specifically responsible for collecting and analyzing unidentified aerial phenomena encountered by the military. Elizondo's resignation and the subsequent release of military thermal imaging videos, such as Gimbal and GoFast, proved to the world that the U.S. military had never stopped its research into UFOs, and their conclusions were far more startling than public statements. These investigative reports pointed out that these objects possess 5 characteristics that transcend conventional physics, such as low observability, instantaneous acceleration, and trans-medium travel. The shift in official terminology from UFO to UAP reflects an effort to destigmatize the subject and embodies real concerns at the national security level. When the world's most powerful military force admits they cannot intercept or identify objects frequently appearing in their airspace, this admission is essentially a form of surrender. The exposure of the ATIP program marked the official entry of the UFO phenomenon from fringe conspiracy theories into mainstream strategic considerations. Truth is no longer a matter of whether to believe, but a scientific battle of when it can be understood. If UFOs are already in our airspace, then why have we spent decades using massive radio receivers to listen to noise from the depths of the universe? The SETI program represents the other side of human rationality, an active, radio physics-based attempt at communication. From the early Project Ozma to the later Breakthrough Listen, scientists have been scanning stellar systems looking for narrowband signals with artificial characteristics. The logic is simple. If a civilization reaches the stage of radio communication, they are very likely to broadcast their existence to the entire universe or use lasers for interstellar communication. However, other than that mysterious "wow" signal, the only feedback we have received is the clamor of background radiation. This asymmetry is puzzling. If UFOs are already on Earth, they have clearly mastered communication technologies far beyond radio. Perhaps in their eyes, the human act of searching for signals using electromagnetic waves is as backward as primitive people using smoke signals to communicate. The silence of SETI might not be because the universe has no life, but because we are tuning in on the wrong channel. We are a group of orphans trying to use wooden whistles to call for help in the era of broadband networks, waiting for an echo from a dimension we cannot yet perceive. The Nimitz encounter of 2004 was not an isolated event. It was the tip of the iceberg of a sustained observation. According to subsequent investigations, 2 weeks before the Tic Tac object appeared, Navy radar had already detected dozens of similar objects near the coast of San Diego. These objects appeared in swarms, dropping vertically from an altitude of over 20,000 meters to sea level, then disappearing from radar screens or moving at extremely high speeds underwater. The sightings by David Fravor and his wingmen were merely because they happened to be on a training flight path. The existence of these objects is highly targeted. They frequently appear near nuclear-powered aircraft carrier strike groups, seemingly evaluating humanity's most cutting-edge weapon platforms. This behavior pattern has caused deep unrest within the military. If these objects are not from another country, then why are they so well acquainted with our defense systems? Subsequent research into the Nimitz incident introduced the concept of transmedium. Witness and radar data show that these objects can switch seamlessly between the atmosphere and the deep sea without any visible physical resistance or fluid dynamic reaction. The ocean covers 70% of the Earth's surface area, with an average depth of thousands of meters, and it remains an unknown wasteland to humanity. A terrifying inference follows. Perhaps the UFO bases are not in galaxies billions of light years away, but right in our inscrutable, never fully explored seabed. When conventional physical detection reaches a stalemate, philosophers and theoretical physicists begin to explore more complex possibilities. What if the explanation for the Fermi paradox lies not in the vastness of space, but in the parameters of our cognition? The zoo hypothesis suggests that Earth may exist within a deliberately maintained observational zone. Under this framework, advanced civilizations may have reached a consensus to allow our natural evolution to proceed without interference. In this setting, unidentified aerial phenomena could be interpreted as observational tools. The traces they occasionally leave behind might be minor anomalies in their masking systems or calculated interactions deemed low risk to our civilizational integrity. The simulation hypothesis offers an even more radical perspective. It suggests that our perceived reality, including the laws of gravity and the structure of the cosmos, could be an advanced computational construct. Within this framework, unidentified objects might not be physical crafts from other worlds, but rather procedural anomalies or indicators of system maintenance. This would provide a theoretical basis for why these objects appear to function independently of inertia or demonstrate instantaneous transitions in a digital construct. Physical laws are essentially adjustable parameters. In this view, we are investigating the truth from within a highly sophisticated environment, perhaps being part of that underlying structure ourselves. While we habitually turn our gaze toward the stars, we may be overlooking a significant area closer to home. 70% of the Earth's surface is covered by oceans, yet humanity has explored less than 5% of the deep sea floor. In this high-pressure, lightless environment, could there be outposts of another technological presence? Unidentified submerged objects, UFOs, represent a significant yet less discussed branch of these phenomena. As early as 1492, Christopher Columbus recorded an observation of a luminous object moving from the sea toward the sky. Modern naval archives contain numerous similar accounts. In 1967, a Brazilian Navy destroyer reportedly tracked an underwater target moving at speeds exceeding 100 knots, a velocity that challenges the standard principles of fluid dynamics, even by modern standards. A notable case involves the sonar data during the Nimitz incident. According to reports from the time, before the Tic Tac object interacted with the aircraft, sonar detected a massive, stationary presence beneath the surface. It appeared to be a central point of origin or recovery for the smaller crafts. If these entities originate not from deep space, but from the unexplored depths of our own planet, it offers a different perspective on our status. We would not be isolated in the universe, but rather cohabitants, sharing a planet with a presence that remains largely hidden from our view. This proximity suggests that the most profound mysteries of our era may not be light years away, but hidden within the vast, uncharted regions of our own world. In various documented accounts of close encounters, a recurring pattern has emerged: a concentrated interest by unidentified entities in human biological systems. Researchers, from early investigators like Betty Hill to later figures such as Whitley Strieber, have consistently noted reports involving the collection of genetic material or the monitoring of reproductive health. This has led to a controversial yet rigorously examined hypothesis: the biological integration program. Some theorists suggest that if an advanced civilization were facing genetic stagnation, they might view Earth, a planet of immense biodiversity, as a unique resource for long-term genetic preservation or enhancement. In accounts involving missing time, observers have described encountering entities that appear to possess a blend of human and unconventional physical traits. These beings are often characterized by a different range of emotional expression, leading to theories about a shift in the nature of consciousness itself. This perspective frames Earth not through a traditional lens, but as a vast biospheric study. In this view, human development might be seen as a significant biological project. The phenomena we observe could be interpreted as the monitoring activities of observers managing a complex, long-term experiment. While this challenges the traditional human-centric view of history, it suggests that our evolutionary trajectory may have been influenced by external factors that remain largely outside our current scientific understanding. The intersection of anomalies and nuclear technology. A review of declassified archives over the past several decades reveals a persistent correlation. Unidentified aerial phenomena exhibit a high frequency of activity near nuclear facilities. From the early test sites in New Mexico to significant historical events like the Chernobyl incident, and continuing to modern nuclear carrier strike groups, these objects appear highly attuned to radioactive energy signatures. A notable incident occurred in 1967 at Malmstrom Air Force Base. Reports indicate that while a luminous object hovered near the facility's perimeter, 10 active intercontinental ballistic missiles suddenly transitioned into a malfunction state and shut down simultaneously. This capability to neutralize a high-level strategic system in an instant represents more than a technical anomaly. It is a profound demonstration of a technological gap that appears to transcend modern defense capabilities. Why is there such a concentrated focus on nuclear energy? It is possible that the deployment of nuclear technology creates disturbances in the fabric of space-time that are detectable to advanced observers. Alternatively, this may represent a form of stabilizing intervention. Just as a manager might intervene when a developing system risks total failure, these observers may appear to monitor or de-escalate activities that threaten the global environment. The fact that the nuclear age and the modern era of sightings began concurrently suggests that our civilization is at a critical transition point. These observers may be monitoring our progress, evaluating whether our species can successfully navigate the risks of high-level technology without compromising its own future. Within the historical accounts of unidentified phenomena, the men in black, characterized by their dark attire and highly disciplined, expressionless demeanor, represent one of the most enigmatic layers of the narrative. Reports consistently place them at the scene shortly after a sighting occurs. Their primary function, as described in these accounts, involves the collection of physical evidence and the implementation of psychological measures to ensure the containment of sensitive information. While long hypothesized to be specialized government operatives, the unusual behavioral traits attributed to them, such as an unfamiliarity with common social norms and a stylized, mechanical manner, have led researchers to more complex theories. Some suggest these figures may act as terrestrial liaisons for unconventional entities. These information managers appear tasked with maintaining a specific state of public consensus, ensuring that the existing social and institutional structures remain undisturbed by anomalous data. The management of information is often a strategic necessity. The hypothesis suggests that a sudden, collective shift in our understanding of humanity's status in the cosmos could challenge established socioeconomic and cultural frameworks. Therefore, these figures function as a stabilizing force, operating in the shadows to maintain an equilibrium. This systematic containment may stem not only from a desire for administrative control, but also from a broader social engineering perspective, positing that human civilization may require a period of gradual adaptation before it can fully integrate the implications of a broader cosmic reality. The interdimensional hypothesis, a shift in perspective. If we explore alternatives to the interstellar travel model, a compelling explanation emerges: the interdimensional hypothesis, a framework supported by both theoretical physicists and specialized researchers. Consider the analogy of a two-dimensional entity. If a three-dimensional object were to pass through its plane, the entity would only perceive a fluctuating, inexplicable line, unable to grasp the object's true volume. Unidentified phenomena may similarly represent the projections of higher dimensional objects traversing our three-dimensional space. Their extraordinary maneuvers, such as instantaneous acceleration and non-ballistic trajectories which appear to violate the laws of inertia, may simply be standard movements within the physical laws of a higher dimensional coordinate system. This framework provides a logical basis for why sensor systems often lose track of these objects. They have not necessarily departed. They may have simply adjusted their position along a higher dimensional axis, effectively moving beyond our sensory range. If this theory is correct, the cosmos is far more complex than it appears. Multiple dimensions may coexist, layered like the pages of a book. What we perceive as a vast, empty void may actually be a vibrant, densely populated environment belonging to another level of reality, with unidentified phenomena acting as the brief, luminous intersections where their world meets our own. In the extensive documentation of unidentified phenomena, the reliability of witness testimony is a central focus of study. However, when the observers are a group of 62 children, the data presents a level of sincerity and consistency that demands serious analysis. In September 1994, at the Aerial School in Ruwa, Zimbabwe, one of the most significant collective encounters in modern history occurred. During a school recess, the students observed a silver-white, disc-shaped craft descend and hover near the campus perimeter. Subsequently, one or two small entities with dark complexions and large distinct features were reported to have emerged. Unlike the dramatized depictions in popular media, these entities reportedly engaged in a non-verbal interaction with the children. According to the students, this exchange involved the direct transmission of imagery into their awareness, specifically scenes depicting environmental degradation and the potential challenges facing future civilization. The significance of this event was further highlighted when Dr. John Mack, a distinguished Harvard psychiatrist, conducted an extensive on-site investigation. He found that the accounts of the 62 children were remarkably aligned, and the emotional responses they displayed were consistent with a genuine, unexplained experience. These children were not seeking public attention. They were describing a profound event using the most direct language available to them. While adult observations can be influenced by preconceived notions, The collective account of these students acts as a unique window into a persistent reality. These phenomena appear to operate independently of human boundaries, occasionally interacting with those who maintain an unfiltered perspective on the world. The intersection of innovation and misidentification. When examining the history of aerial anomalies, we encounter a notable paradox. The rapid evolution of human technology has frequently been the primary catalyst for unexplained sightings. During the height of the Cold War in the 1950s and 1960s, the CIA and the U.S. Air Force utilized Area 51 to develop reconnaissance platforms that exceeded the known physical limits of that era. When the U-2 reconnaissance aircraft cruised at 70,000 feet, its unique wingspan and metallic skin would reflect high-altitude sunlight even after sunset on the ground, creating the appearance of a luminous, high-speed object against a dark sky. The subsequent SR-71 Blackbird, traveling at more than 3 times the speed of sound, possessed a sleek, unconventional airframe that aligned closely with the contemporary public imagination of advanced aerospace technology. In a declassified report from the 1990s, the CIA acknowledged that during the mid-20th century, more than half of the documented sighting reports were actually attributable to these highly classified military flight tests. The ambiguity surrounding unidentified phenomena occasionally served as an effective informational safeguard for these secret projects. As long as the public categorized these sightings as unconventional anomalies, the specifics of new military platforms remained protected. This intersection of advanced engineering and strategic communication represents a significant chapter in history. At times, the sense of wonder we experience when observing the night sky is a reflection of our own technological progress, occasionally perceived as something beyond our own world. For decades, official discourse regarding unidentified phenomena was characterized by a policy of strict compartmentalization. However, a landmark investigative report by the New York Times in 2017 signaled a profound shift in this long-standing silence. The report revealed the existence of a classified initiative known as the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, ATIP, under the direction of Luis Elizondo since 2007. This program had been systematically documenting unidentified aerial phenomena, UAP, encountered by military personnel during training and operational missions. The public disclosure of this program, accompanied by 3 declassified military videos, Gimbal, Go Fast, and the Nimitz encounter, officially moved the study of UAP from the periphery of public speculation to the forefront of national strategic analysis. Captured via sophisticated infrared sensors, these objects demonstrated what researchers now categorize as the 5 observables: anti-gravity lift, sudden instantaneous acceleration, hypersonic velocities without detectable acoustic signatures, low observability, and trans-medium travel capabilities. When the Department of Defense confirmed the authenticity of these recordings and acknowledged that the propulsion and origins of these objects remain currently unidentified, a new era of official transparency began. The existence of ATIP suggests that even the most advanced defense systems encounter significant technological challenges when analyzing these anomalies. This realization indicates that our understanding of aerospace security is evolving as we encounter phenomena that operate outside our current technological paradigms. The Fermi paradox and the nature of the cosmos. As we synthesize the available sightings, physical data, and official documentation, our rational inquiry eventually leads to the fundamental question posed by physicist Enrico Fermi: where is everybody? According to the Drake equation, the Milky Way should statistically host a significant number of intelligent civilizations. Given the vast age of the galaxy, If even a single civilization achieved interstellar travel at a fraction of light speed, they could theoretically have reached every corner of the Milky Way in a period that is relatively brief on a cosmic scale. Yet, for decades, our astronomical surveys have primarily documented the persistent background radiation of space, with the singular exception of the brief wow signal. This great silence has led to several compelling theoretical frameworks. One is the Great Filter hypothesis, which posits that civilizations may face existential hurdles, such as resource management or technological risks, before they can achieve interstellar status. Alternatively, the simulation hypothesis suggests that our perceived physical reality might be an advanced computational construct. Within this model, the laws of physics would function as underlying parameters, and UAP could be interpreted as anomalies or indicators of system-level adjustments. In this view, we are investigating the nature of reality from within its own framework. This shift in perspective, moving from traditional observation to considering the fundamental nature of existence, represents one of the most profound intellectual challenges of our time. As this 2-hour narration approaches its conclusion, we return once more to the fundamental question: what is the nature of these phenomena? They may be physical probes from distant star systems. They may be projections from higher dimensional axes. They may represent the intersection of time and advanced technology. Or perhaps they are manifestations of the collective human psyche as we confront the vastness of a silent universe. Regardless of the ultimate answer, these phenomena have become a significant symbol for modern civilization. They serve as a reminder that despite our technological achievements on this planet, a profound mystery remains within the cosmos. In this journey, spanning half a century, we are not only searching for extraterrestrial intelligence, but also seeking to define humanity's own place within the cosmic coordinate system. When the Apollo astronauts looked back at the Earth from the Moon, they witnessed a fragile, isolated, and beautiful blue oasis. Within the shadows of that oasis, these recurring, flickering lights may be a subtle, yet significant revelation for our developing civilization. That we exist within a vast and potentially populated interstellar environment, even if formal contact has not yet been established. In the expansive reaches of the starry sea, we are like a young civilization holding a torch in the quiet night, where each spark crossing the sky represents a beacon encouraging us to look beyond our own horizons and toward the stars. On the winter night of November 17, 1986, during the closing years of the Cold War era, JAL Flight 1628, a Boeing 747 cargo plane, was maintaining a steady course at 35,000 feet over northern Alaska. Captain Kenju Terauchi, a veteran pilot with over 10,000 hours of flight experience, was accustomed to the disciplined observation of the high-altitude environment. However, at 5:11 p.m. near Fairbanks, he encountered a phenomenon that challenged standard aviation intuition. Initially, Captain Terauchi considered conventional explanations, such as distant airbase lights or atmospheric refraction. Yet, within minutes, 2 large rectangular structures appeared directly ahead of the aircraft, at a distance of less than 2 kilometers. In aviation terms, such a proximity represents a significant and unconventional encounter. These objects lacked traditional wings or propulsion systems. Their perimeters emitted a rhythmic, luminous glow, creating an intense visual presence that appeared to illuminate the surrounding night sky with an unusual clarity. In an era defined by high-stakes nuclear deterrence, human strategic planning was not limited to the surveillance of rival radar arrays. Military leadership also confronted a phenomenon privately categorized as asymmetric aerial pressure. By the mid-1960s, A specialized operational code appeared within the classified archives of the Soviet Air Defense Forces, PVO 27YU. This was not a designation for a new interceptor, but a procedural manual specifically designed for aerial objects that exhibited unconventional maneuvering logic beyond the capabilities of standard interception technology. According to declassified intelligence archives, in January 1970, a long-range early warning station in Siberia detected a highly irregular signal. The target maintained a stationary position at an altitude of approximately 30,000 meters, displaying a fluctuating radar cross-section, RCS, that indicated a non-standard physical profile. Under Soviet technical protocols, such a target was immediately classified at the 27YU level. 2 MiG-25 interceptors, the highest performing aircraft of that era, were scrambled from Krasnoyarsk Air Base to identify the anomaly. However, as the fighters approached within a 10-kilometer radius of the target, they encountered a total disruption of onboard electronic systems. From advanced fire control radars to basic radio communications, every electronic component experienced a state of simultaneous interference. Subsequent investigation reports described this as a profound signal silence. Following a brief period of mechanical vibration, all electronic instrumentation ceased to function, leaving the pilots in an environment devoid of even standard electronic static. Furthermore, the object appeared to respond to tactical maneuvers with precision. Whenever an interceptor attempted to manually align for a potential lock-on, the object would execute a rapid positional shift across vast distances at velocities that defied visual tracking. This consistent bypass of conventional inertia and aerodynamics led strategic planners to conclude that existing air defense systems faced a significant technological disparity when encountering these unidentified phenomena. The emergence of a SIMOMU, strategic realignment. Across the Atlantic, the U.S. Air Force encountered a parallel dilemma through classified initiatives such as Project Sign and Project Blue Book. This shared recognition of an unexplained presence, which transcended Cold War ideologies, eventually facilitated one of the most discreet communication frameworks in history, a SIMIM. This represented a unique intelligence-sharing channel between the two superpowers, dedicated to the real-time exchange of data regarding aerial objects of unidentified origin. During an era of extreme geopolitical tension, the appearance of an ASIM-IMU-level signal, specifically an object traversing the Arctic Circle at high Mach numbers without a recognized radar signature, would trigger an immediate connection via the emergency hotline between Moscow and Washington. The communications were characterized by a profound brevity, often centered on a single, vital confirmation, not ours. This simple statement reflected a temporary, pragmatic alignment of interests. Both administrations recognized that this unidentified presence possessed the capability to operate independently of gravitational constraints and potentially interface with sensitive strategic command systems. The existence of the ASIM-IMU protocol suggests a fundamental shift in the official assessment of unidentified phenomena. The subject of inquiry is no longer a distant theoretical signal from the stars, but a persistent reality within our own atmosphere, observing a civilization navigating the complexities of its own technological maturation. The presence of these phenomena represents not only a challenge to our understanding of physics, but also a significant variable in humanity's information structures. In subsequent AATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, research, analysts proposed a rigorous hypothesis. The behavioral patterns exhibited by these objects suggest capabilities that extend beyond the mere reflection or absorption of radar waves. They appear to possess a sophisticated interface with advanced operational systems Whether it was the 2004 Nimitz encounter, where the object appeared to anticipate a predetermined assembly point, or the documented anomalies in strategic systems during the Cold War, these events suggest a high level of situational awareness on the part of the unidentified presence. From their perspective, the complex security and cryptographic systems of our era may be more accessible than previously imagined. This information transparency is a primary reason why these phenomena remain a subject of high-level administrative discretion. The core of the matter may not solely be the existence of extraterrestrial life, but the realization that our current methods of data protection may face unprecedented challenges from a more advanced technological paradigm. The management of information. Analysis of the MIB phenomenon. If unidentified aerial phenomena represent the physical data in the sky, then the accounts of men in black, MIB, could be viewed as a systematic mechanism designed to manage the distribution of that data. In various documented reports and survivor accounts, these figures are described not as conventional operatives, but as specialized personnel with highly unconventional behavioral logic. Their appearances often align with a specific time frame, arriving within the critical window, following a significant sighting, to ensure that anomalous information does not disrupt public consensus through a series of psychological and administrative interventions. In many MIB records, witnesses frequently highlight a non-standard biological quality. Descriptions often include skin that appears unusually pale and translucent, and attire that remains impeccably maintained regardless of environmental conditions. More detailed observations suggest further anomalies: facial expressions that appear stylized or static, a reduced frequency in blinking, and a vocal tone characterized by a lack of emotional fluctuation. These details often trigger a sense of cognitive dissonance, leading some researchers to hypothesize that these figures may be sophisticated biological simulators or specialized information carriers designed to facilitate a temporary interface with the human environment. By presenting an appearance that is nearly human yet distinct in its details, they exert a subtle but effective influence over the witness's perception. The enigmatic nature of these figures also extends to their apparent unfamiliarity with the foundational logic of daily human society. In several documented encounters, these visitors displayed significant blind spots regarding common terrestrial norms, such as the use of standard utensils or an unusual focus on obsolete technology. This cognitive disconnect suggests they may not be operatives traditionally trained within human institutions, but rather observers deployed with a more analytical, perhaps digital, understanding of our civilization. Their objective appears highly focused: to recover physical data, such as sensor tapes, photographic evidence, or physical samples, and to utilize verbal suggestion to encourage a narrative correction in the witness's memory. Within this logic, information is not being suppressed in a traditional sense, but rather managed. By preventing a chain reaction of public discourse, individual encounters are effectively reclassified as manageable systemic noise. From the perspective of civilizational stability, these specialized personnel function as a systemic safeguard. It is hypothesized that the unmanaged distribution of data regarding unidentified phenomena could significantly impact established cultural frameworks, institutional boundaries, and social equilibrium. Therefore, these figures operating within the background objectively facilitate a delicate balance. Their role extends beyond the recovery of data. They reinforce the structural parameters of contemporary civilization. By operating within the fringes of these events, they ensure that individuals who encounter anomalous data can reintegrate into standard social environments. This systematic management of information reflects both administrative caution and potentially a broader social engineering protective mechanism, positing that human society may require a period of gradual development before fully integrating the implications of an expanded cosmic reality. Until that threshold is reached, these managers of information will likely continue to maintain the boundaries of our current consensus. The Hill Encounter, a study in cognitive imprinting. The 1961 experience reported by Betty and Barney Hill provides a significant, albeit complex, case study in the field of unidentified phenomena. Unlike the electronic signals captured by radar, this account focuses on data retrieved from human consciousness. During subsequent clinical interviews involving hypnotic regression, Betty Hill provided a detailed sketch of a star map she reported seeing within the object. The existence of this map shifted the encounter from a visual sighting to a discussion regarding interstellar coordinate systems. The map featured a series of stellar points connected by solid and dashed lines, which were described as routes or navigational tracks. In the 1960s, astronomical data regarding local stellar distribution was still evolving, and the sketch was initially viewed as a subjective interpretation. However, in later years, researchers utilized computational models to identify a notable geometric correlation between the sketch and the stellar arrangement, as viewed from the perspective of the Zeta Reticuli system. This unexpected precision has led to significant inquiry within the analytical community. The central question remains: how could an individual without specialized astronomical training reproduce the specific positions of distant stellar bodies? This suggests a method of non-verbal information transmission. The interaction appeared to bypass traditional communication, instead imprinting a complex system of spatial coordinates directly into the witness's memory. This behavioral pattern suggests a sophisticated understanding of human cognitive processing, indicating that under specific conditions, the human mind may interface with external information in ways that extend beyond our current understanding of sensory perception. In the account provided by the Hills, a notable element involved the description of systematic physiological observations. These procedures were characterized not by malice, but by a level of academic efficiency. Reports indicated that the entities displayed a concentrated interest in biological markers, such as skin tissue and genetic samples. This behavioral pattern suggests a specific research objective, a long-term genetic survey. If Earth is viewed as a diverse biological environment, these recurring encounters could be interpreted as standardized field samplings. This perspective implies that the observers may prioritize the study of genetic data, which reflects a species' evolutionary trajectory, over individual social structures or emotional states. This focus on biological analysis represents a significant difference in the foundational values between the two cultures. Active decoding. From Kepler to James Webb. As human technology advances, our capacity for deep space inquiry has extended to the Lagrange points. The progression from the Kepler Space Telescope to the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, represents humanity's transition from passive observation to active technological decoding. By monitoring minute fluctuations in stellar brightness, the Kepler mission has confirmed thousands of exoplanets. Within this vast dataset, researchers are analyzing anomalous shadows. While typical planetary shadows are consistent and circular, the light curves of certain stars exhibit irregular geometric patterns. This has led to serious scientific hypotheses regarding potential megastructures or advanced orbital engineering. If unidentified phenomena utilize propulsion systems that operate outside conventional inertia, as analyzed by initiatives like AATIP, it is logical to hypothesize that their origins might leave detectable industrial signatures. Kepler's data allows us to correlate localized anomalies with specific stellar coordinates. The capabilities of the James Webb Telescope are even more specialized. It can analyze the atmospheric spectra of distant worlds to identify technosignatures. Scientists are not merely looking for signs of water or oxygen. But for industrial byproducts such as chlorofluorocarbons, CFCs, and nitrogen dioxide, compounds that rarely occur naturally in such concentrations, we are, in essence, searching for the chemical indicators of civilizational activity. If we identify atmospheric imbalances that suggest industrial manufacturing, the study of these phenomena will gain a firm physical foundation, rooted in rigorous molecular absorption spectra rather than individual testimony. The Great Filter, observers of the evolutionary threshold. When we utilize such advanced observation, yet continue to encounter the great silence of the Fermi paradox, a compelling theoretical framework emerges. The Great Filter. While the Drake equation suggests a galaxy populated with life, the empirical reality remains a quiet cosmos. The Great Filter theory posits that in the transition from basic life to interstellar civilization, there exists a threshold with a statistically low survival rate, perhaps due to resource management, technological risks, or biological challenges. This theory recontextualizes the phenomenon as a form of civilizational observation. If these crafts belong to entities that have already navigated their own filter event, their presence near Earth might be an effort to monitor how a developing civilization addresses its own critical transitions. Within this framework, the answer to the Fermi paradox may be that we reside within a managed observational zone. Advanced civilizations may maintain a policy of non-interference to preserve the natural evolutionary process. The occasional sightings we document might be minor anomalies in these observational systems or limited efforts to ensure the long-term stability of the environment. While this perspective shifts our role from independent actors to subjects of study, it provides a consistent logical framework for the persistent anomalies recorded in our era. In the extensive quest to identify extraterrestrial civilizations, humanity has often moved beyond passive observation. The search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI, represents a significant application of rational inquiry. The effort to identify potential technological signatures by monitoring narrowband radio signals within the interstellar medium. This endeavor reached a notable milestone in 1977 with the detection of the WOW signal. At that time, the Big Ear radio telescope at Ohio State University detected a high-intensity signal lasting 72 seconds, originating from the direction of the constellation Sagittarius. The significance of this signal was rooted in its frequency, approximately 1420 MHz, which corresponds to the spectral line of neutral hydrogen. As hydrogen is the most abundant element in the cosmos, astronomers have long theorized that this frequency would serve as a logical, universal channel for interstellar communication. When astronomer Jerry Eman reviewed the data printout, the intensity and narrowband characteristics of the signal, which stood out significantly from the celestial background noise, prompted him to famously note, "Wow," in the margin. The most enigmatic feature of this event remains its non-repeatability. Despite subsequent surveys of that same celestial coordinate, no similar signal has been re-identified. This led to a compelling theoretical framework. The telescope may have inadvertently intersected a highly directional, high-energy beam that was traversing deep space. This singular intersection underscores the immense scale and complexity of the cosmic environment we are seeking to understand. The acoustic archives, analyzing deep space data. While public perception of space agencies is often focused on high-resolution visual data, decades of auditory and electromagnetic archives contain records that offer a more nuanced perspective. Many of these recordings, initially categorized as background interference or instrumental bias, have revealed intriguing patterns when subjected to modern signal processing and spectral analysis. Within the downlinks of certain deep space probes, researchers have identified analog signals that exhibit a complex internal structure, distinct from the rhythmic pulses typically associated with planetary magnetospheres or pulsars. These anomalies appear with relative frequency during transitions near specific gravitational landmarks, such as the Jovian moons or planetary ring systems. Some analytical models suggest these may represent structured data packets rather than random fluctuations. If we consider the cosmos as a vast environment of information exchange, these signals could be interpreted as elements of larger interstellar data streams. The cautious approach taken by agencies like NASA regarding this data reflects a commitment to scientific rigor and a careful consideration of how such findings are communicated to the public. Within these layers of background noise may lie complex encodings that remain beyond our current mastery, waiting for future advancements in decodification and a deeper understanding of the civilizational dimensions they may represent. Entering the 21st century, the formal designation for these aerial phenomena shifted from UFO to UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, a strategic transition that moved the discourse from marginal speculation into the framework of national strategic security. By replacing flying object with phenomena, officials have facilitated more effective cross-departmental collaboration, as seen in the 2021 ODNI report, which formally acknowledged 144 unexplained events. This shift indicates a move toward a defensive cognition model, focusing on how technical signatures impact aviation safety rather than debating their origin, thereby expanding our definitions of sovereignty and aerospace management. However, in an era of ubiquitous high-definition sensors, we face a unique information theoretic paradox. While data volume increases, the truth becomes more complex due to information redundancy from simulated media. This environment often leads to cognitive saturation, where high-quality empirical evidence is frequently submerged by rapid deconstruction and diverse interpretations, making the core reality harder to identify than ever before. As we seek to understand why these phenomena maintain a selective presence, they appear to operate under a civilizational conservation principle, allowing us to observe their contours without prematurely revealing their essence. This mode of existence serves as a background prompt on our evolutionary path, reminding us that the universe retains fundamental mysteries regarding space-time and gravity beyond our planetary achievements. As we move into a state of quiet reflection, the patterns on our radar screens transform into a grand cosmic backdrop, where these unconventional occurrences act as signals guiding us toward a higher level of understanding. Whether the truth originates from distant galaxies or a hidden dimension, it remains a silent and enduring witness to the growth of our young civilization, encouraging us to maintain our sense of wonder in the expansive reaches of the cosmos. When we examine half a century of UFO sighting history, analyze the radar data from the Nimitz carrier group, and review those mysterious orbs of light hovering around nuclear facilities, a cold logical contradiction stands before our reason like an abyss. This is the famous question raised by physicist Enrico Fermi in 1950. If there truly are so many technological entities in the universe that transcend human understanding, and if the emergence of extraterrestrial civilizations is a high probability event, then where is everybody? The logical deduction is brutal. According to the Drake equation, the Milky Way possesses hundreds of billions of stars. Even if the probability of life emerging is extremely low, over the course of 10 billion years, thousands of interstellar civilizations should have been born. According to current human understanding of dynamics, if a civilization mastered propulsion at just 1% of the speed of light, it would take them only a few million years, equivalent to a long afternoon on a cosmic scale, to colonize the entire galaxy. Yet, the reality is a suffocating great silence. Aside from that solitary wow signal, our radio telescopes have heard nothing but the noise of stellar pulses. This extreme asymmetry between existence and perception has forced scientists to propose a chilling explanatory framework: the Great Filter Theory. The core logic of the Great Filter Theory is simple and cold. In the process of life evolving from primitive single cells to a Type 3 civilization capable of crossing galaxies, there must exist one or several extremely difficult hurdles. These hurdles act like narrow gates with extremely low probability. The vast majority of civilizations will be completely extinguished because of some internal or external causality before they ever touch the threshold. This filter may lie in our evolutionary past, or it may be standing silently in our future. If the filter is in our past, if humanity is lucky, then the filter that destroyed countless extraterrestrial civilizations is behind us. Perhaps the leap from prokaryotes to eukaryotes was extremely accidental, or the birth of intelligent life itself is a 1 in a billion miracle in the universe. In this case, the strangeness of the UFO phenomenon is that they might be those very few pioneers who were as lucky as we are, but started earlier. They observe us much like one would observe a group of orphans who narrowly survived among the ruins of probability. If the filter is in our future, this is the most oppressive possibility for the scientific community. It implies that before any civilization masters interstellar travel technology, they encounter an irresistible self-destruction mechanism. Perhaps it is the self-reaping of nuclear weapons, runaway artificial intelligence, or a yet undiscovered physical law that sets an upper limit on energy utilization. In this perspective, the UFOs frequently appearing around nuclear silos and advanced laboratories take on an extremely strange role. They are not invaders, but grave keepers. They sit in the front row, coldly watching how humanity steps into that predestined extinction. The Great Filter often manifests not as a grand interstellar war, but as the collapse of a civilization's internal logic. As a civilization's technological level grows exponentially, the scale of the energy it controls will become severely disconnected from the speed of its physiological and ethical evolution. The curse of energy. When a civilization learns to utilize stellar-level energy, the byproduct is often the total collapse of the ecosystem. Just as the unnatural atmospheric chemical compositions we seek when looking for techno-signatures, these are often the final plumes of smoke left by a civilization before it suffocates. The defection of intelligence. Another potential form of the Great Filter is the digital singularity. When a race creates computing power beyond its own understanding, the agency of the civilization will be transferred. Those gravity-defying tic-tac objects we see on radar might no longer be biological carriers, but pure digital entities wandering this galaxy due to automatic system operations. Social entropy increase. With the extreme transparency and fragmentation of information, internal consensus within a civilization will dissolve. Truth no longer exists as a unified will, and the civilization will degenerate into mutually consuming noise. This internal disintegration causes most civilizations to rot in the soil of their home planet before they ever touch the stars. Introducing the Great Filter Theory into UFO research brings logical consistency to many strange phenomena. Why do those objects always exhibit a posture of non-interference yet omnipresence? If the Great Filter truly exists, then human civilization is currently in a high-risk period of touching the filter. We have mastered atomic energy, stand at the threshold of artificial general intelligence, and are attempting to establish a permanent base on the moon. In the eyes of advanced civilizations, humanity is at the critical point of transition from a controlled phase to an uncontrolled phase. The frequent appearance of UFOs in our airspace may not be for communication. They are more likely monitoring an experimental process. Every intercepted missile signal and every hovering instance in sensitive areas is an assessment of the human sample's ability to control risk. This explanation strips humanity of its subjective status and demotes us to an observed specimen. This strange, passive state of development explains why all sightings carry a quality of being aloof, because before the filter takes effect, the observer will not intervene in the outcome of the experiment. If humanity has not yet touched the great filter, then we may be facing another logic, the zoo hypothesis. This hypothesis suggests that a mature network of civilizations already exists in the Milky Way, but they have reached a consensus similar to planetary quarantine. In their view, human civilization still carries primitive violent genes and a chaotic organizational structure, and does not yet possess the qualifications to enter interstellar society. Therefore, Earth is designated as a protected, isolated nature reserve. Those UFOs we observe violating physical laws are essentially sensors on the zoo fence, or light and shadow accidentally leaked by the administrators during routine environmental sampling. This hypothesis explains the dead silence in the Fermi paradox. It's not that no one is speaking, but that no one is willing to lower themselves to speak with us. We search for radio signals among the ruins, much like ants trying to interpret the scents left by cars on a highway. The UFO phenomenon, under this logic, is actually a one-way transparency of high-level civilizations over low-level ones. They know everything about us, while we can only glimpse a sliver of their outline in dreams and radar false alarms. Entering the 21st century, the formal designation for these aerial phenomena shifted from UFO to UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomena, representing a strategic transition that moved the discourse from marginal speculation into the framework of national strategic security. By replacing flying object with phenomena, officials have facilitated more effective cross-departmental collaboration, as seen in the 2021 ODNI report, which formally acknowledged 144 unexplained events. This shift indicates a move toward a defensive cognition model, focusing on how technical signatures impact aviation safety rather than debating their origin, thereby expanding our definitions of sovereignty and aerospace management. However, in an era of ubiquitous high-definition sensors, we face a unique information-theoretic paradox. While data volume increases, the truth becomes more complex due to information redundancy from simulated media. This environment often leads to cognitive saturation, where high-quality empirical evidence is frequently submerged by rapid deconstruction and diverse interpretations, making the core reality harder to identify than ever before. As we seek to understand why these phenomena maintain a selective presence, they appear to operate under a civilizational conservation principle, allowing us to observe their contours without prematurely revealing their essence. This mode of existence serves as a background prompt on our evolutionary path, reminding us that the universe retains fundamental mysteries regarding space-time and gravity beyond our planetary achievements. Within the context of the Great Filter hypothesis, we may be observing the activities of a rare group of pioneers who achieved interstellar capabilities millions of years before us, or perhaps we are documenting the autonomous remnants of civilizations that faced existential thresholds, leaving behind observational systems that persist through the ages. Furthermore, the simulation hypothesis suggests that the unconventional movements of these objects might represent fundamental adjustments to the underlying parameters of our reality, operating beyond the constraints of traditional Newtonian mechanics. As we move into a state of quiet reflection, these patterns transform into a grand cosmic backdrop, where unconventional occurrences act as signals guiding us toward a higher level of understanding. Whether the truth originates from distant galaxies or a hidden dimension, it remains a silent and enduring witness to the growth of our young civilization, encouraging us to maintain our sense of wonder in the expansive reaches of the cosmos. If the Great Filter and the simulation hypothesis are too pessimistic, then the dark forest theory provides an explanation with deep sociological color. It posits that due to the chain of suspicion and the uncontrollability of technological explosions between civilizations, the most rational survival strategy is total silence and hiding. When we attempt to measure the dead silence of the universe through physical scales, we perhaps overlook a fundamental question. Why do we have such a morbid fear of loneliness? In the grand narrative of UFO exploration, this sense of fear has always been the latent driver for humanity to seek the truth. We analyze radar waves, decode radio, and even attempt to restore abduction memories under hypnosis at all costs. The underlying logic is a rebellion against the setting of being cosmic orphans. From the perspective of psychological evolution, humans as social creatures derive their sense of security from feedback. However, faced with the silence brought by the Great Filter, human reason begins to produce hallucinations among the ruins. These hallucinations give rise to various explanations. Perhaps they are right beside us, we just cannot perceive them. This setting of one-way transparency, while logically solving the Fermi paradox, pushes humanity toward a deeper sense of powerlessness. Psychologically, we are not looking for neighbors, but for a proctor who can prove our value of existence. Under this logic, the frequent public appearances of UFOs seem extremely eerie. If the primary law of survival is to avoid being discovered, then these lights flickering in Earth's airspace and signals charging through radar are not a form of communication, but a form of dimensionality reduction reconnaissance. They dare to appear because they are certain that humanity's technological level poses absolutely no threat to them. Much like we do not care about lighting a torch in front of an anthill. We once pinned our hopes on the Drake equation to provide a warm answer. Every parameter in the equation, from the star formation rate to the expected lifespan of a civilization broadcasting signals, was initially set quite optimistically. However, as the data returned by the Kepler and James Webb telescopes becomes increasingly detailed, we find that while planets in habitable zones are as numerous as the hairs on a cow, systems that can exist stably for billions of years without being destroyed by the flares of their parent stars are few and far between. This collapse of probability leads to survivor bias. The reason we can sit here and discuss UFOs is that Earth has dodged countless fatal gamma-ray bursts and impacts over a long span of 4 billion years. In the face of this extreme luck, any conclusion about the universe being full of life appears like a self-indulgent fantasy. If life itself is a probabilistic, unauthorized construction, then the Great Silence is not an anomaly, but the most authentic state of the universe. In this view, the UFO phenomenon is more like a collective auditory hallucination produced because we desperately want to win in this cold casino. Returning to the year 1977, a moment that brought both exhilaration and despair to the astronomical community. That wow signal, lasting 72 seconds, was essentially a fleeting glimpse for humanity into the order of the cosmos. However, as noted in the outline, for over 40 years since then, there has been nothing but the static of stellar background radiation, no further echoes. This one-time civilizational signal reveals a brutal reality of cosmic communication, the asymmetry of technological paths. If a signal emitted by a civilization travels for millions of light years before reaching Earth, the source of that transmission may have already turned to ash before its own Great Filter by the time the signal arrives. What we capture is not a greeting, but the lingering light of a civilization before its extinction. This displacement in time makes all searching feel like archaeology among ruins. The frequent appearance of UFOs on Earth, contrasted with the extreme scarcity of deep space signals, constitutes a strange paradox. Either they have mastered instantaneous communication beyond radio, or what we are seeing now are merely shadows left within, automatically running programs by civilizations that have long since vanished. When the U.S. Department of Defense officially renamed UFOs to UAP, Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, it was more than a change in terminology. It was a self-deconstruction of human power. In the logic of the Cold War, the sky was an extension of sovereignty. However, in the face of the videos disclosed by the AATIP, Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, that sense of sovereignty evaporated instantly. Whether it is the tic-tac objects demonstrating instantaneous acceleration, or the disks entering the airspace above nuclear-powered aircraft carriers as if entering an uninhabited zone, their existence is a mockery of Earth's political structures. When the most advanced radar systems, such as the spy one carried by the USS Nimitz, are easily jammed, and when top-tier pilots are told, "Do not pursue, because you cannot catch up," the civilizational consensus built upon violence begins to crack. This cognitive collapse is more destructive than an invasion itself. If airspace is undefended and the technological gap is cross-dimensional, then our current resource allocation, national borders, and military competition appear as nothing more than infighting within an anthill in the eyes of higher-order observers. As this 2-hour narration approaches its end, we must acknowledge that the truth of UFOs may never have a clear moment of revelation like a movie. It is a continuous, gradual infiltration designed to challenge our arrogance as the masters of the planet. The Great Filter is like a silent wall standing across the path every civilization must travel. Every sighting we experience, every radar lock-on, and every seized classified file is actually a continuous confirmation of the existence of this filter. Those creations exhibiting miraculous physical properties in the air are perhaps reminding us the universe does not protect the weak, nor does it favor fledgling races. As we close our eyes and sink into dreams in the tranquility of deep space, remember that the 380,000 kilometers of silence is not a void. It is a blank space left by a higher dimensional consciousness, a silent exam question left for us by pioneers who crossed the filter. We stand at the crossroads of evolution. On the left is self-destruction through nuclear fire and algorithms. On the right is the return journey to the stars and the unknown. The UFO is not the answer. It is merely a question mark, hanging over our heads, constantly scrutinizing whether the human race is truly worthy of that sea of stars.